So while we may put the policy in that speaks about equity, it's the implementation that we always run into problems. And so while we may have a nice definition of equity on paper, then somebody has to implement that. And it all comes down to resources. Now, and we're a very selfish people. Just put it that way. We see our children, I always say, okay, I got to take care of my child. And so and that's your focus. And so we've moved away from this idea that we are our brother's keeper. We are our brother's keeper. We are responsible for each other. I love the concept that I'm living in a commonwealth. You know what I mean? And we don't teach each other what that means anymore. There's a reason why we created a constitution that made us responsible for some basic things for each other. There is a compact in that word commonwealth. And so therefore, we have to spend some time re-engaging people about what it means for us to live here and what the commitment is that you make in choosing to come to live here in terms of our responsibility to each other. But that takes going back to some of those documents. We don't talk about, I can get all the policies, but go back to what created us, and then we move forward from that. We don't spend time doing that anymore. We jumped right into the conversation without the framework, okay? And then I think we need to have each other understand each other again, because we say equity, and even if you're a middle-class family in Boston right now, you're struggling. If I have a special needs kids in Boston right now and I'm trying to figure out, and I'm a middle-class family, I'm trying to figure out how to support them with all sorts of resources, it's hard to get me to hear that there's a kid in Roxbury who needs help. But we do need to figure out a way. I think it's a collective space to get people. It's not the data that's going to get to people. It's being able to see that other child in their child, and then figuring out a way how we do that together. And we don't have enough space anymore because, like I said, I'm going to go back to my neighborhood. You're going to go back to your neighborhood here. You're going to speak to the neighbors you speak to, the people that you interact with, the folks that you go to the cocktail party with, and then your life goes back as usual. You will not interact, many of you, with some of the very kids that we're talking about, and your families won't, And so it's a distant connection. And so we have to figure out a way to change that, because even if I pass the law tomorrow, I pass the policy tomorrow, we're going to then everybody gets ginned up for their thing, their position, their thing. And we haven't figure out a way to move out of that. So that's one. The dialogue has to be amongst a mixed group of people, and it has to be created. And that table has to be set for them in some ways because they're too busy. And we have to create the space for them to interact. And I think that's, I'd go to New York and I'd look around, what it's like, or people talk about being black in this city, growing up black in this city. And then you'd go to downtown to go to eat. And, I work in a building, I have friends from all cultures, all races. I love it. But then usually you're the only one. And then you're supposed to, because I look like I am who I'm supposed to be the expert on everybody. I'm an expert on Marie. I'm not an expert on all black people. That's not what my calling is. But when you walk into the room, everybody expects that you have this answer, which I don't. You go to dinner. You guys think about your lives as you walk out. You go to dinner and you look around. It's great to see people, but nobody looks like you. So you're in a constant state of isolation. Okay? And that's my world. Because and it gets a little frustrating and it gets a little lonely. Now, take it away from that and then think about your lives. You see each other. If you're white, you're spending time in a white world. In many instances. Your families, though we're having more and more mixed families, the people you go to dinner with, and you're spending it with people in your own income rank, oftentimes. So it's not malicious. It's just the way the world has now been constructed by how we're living. So we have to create spaces so that people can have that across. And even if I go to black folks, we all the same. It's the ski club, the scuba club, you know what I'm saying? It's Jack and Jill, it's whatever. So it's everybody in their own little group again, okay? And so then we think about, those poor black kids in Roxbury. This is black folk. Guys, we got to be, if we want to change, we got to be honest with what's happening.
Change ourselves.
Okay? We've got to be honest. And so, therefore, we have to take a hard internal look and figure out what some of the social structures that we're going to create to allow us to be with each other, so that when that equity conversation comes to play, we can see each other and each other. And that's what we've stopped doing in this world today. And that's what we've stopped doing in Boston in a lot of ways.